A lot of people don't know what they want. So what they're doing is they're applying to every single job, every single opportunity. They're kind of just throwing something at a wall and hoping that it will stick. If a company has organized time to meet with you, to interview you, I promise you, the intention is that they want to hire you. I always believe that rejection is redirection. Like if you didn't get the role, it doesn't mean that you won't get it in 6 months or in a year. It just means that's not where you're meant to be right at this moment.
The Get Rich Slow Club podcast is a collaboration between Tash Etchman from Tash Invest and Anna Christina from Perla. The Get Rich Slow Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we record on. From coast to coast, across land, waters, and communities, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Any advice is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's appropriate for you.
Welcome to the Get Rich Slow Club podcast,
where we take you from beginner to confident investor,
where we can teach you everything you need to know about investing.
So come get rich slow with us.
We've got an awesome episode today. We have Nabila Farhat, who is a career coach with over a decade of experience in recruitment, where she helped organizations like Redbubble and Block build high-performing teams and design inclusive hiring programs. Now, through Avar Coaching, she's dedicated to helping ambitious and passionate professionals take control of their careers with a simple, structured methodology that's not just about perfecting resumes and cover letters, but also about answering the big questions. What do you really want from your career, and how do you get there?
Oh, this is heavy already. What do you really want from life?
Yes, and Nabila creates tailored roadmaps that empower her clients to build their dream careers with confidence, blending her recruiting experience and personal experiences to guide them every step of the way. Outside of coaching, Nabila is an almond milk chai enthusiast, cat mom, and writer of the series Art of Becoming My Best Self on Substack. We're so excited to have you, Nabila.
So excited to be here.
Great. So we hit off every episode with a money win or loss of the week. Do you have something to share?
Yeah, I just got myself a Substack writing coach. So as you know, I've got this series that I write on there, but my subscribers are sitting at, I think, like 56. And I'd love to grow that platform really intentionally and thoughtfully so that when I publish my poetry book, that's another thing that I do.
A poetry book, you do so much. I love this.
When I publish my poetry book next year, I have an audience to essentially market my book to, right? And so I made the decision to commit and to get someone to give me the blueprint of how to grow on Substack. And so I see that as a huge financial win. I think when you're investing in a coach, it may not always feel like it's a win straight off the bat, but I always think about short-term sacrifices and long-term gains.
Yes.
Yeah. So financially it'll pay off in the long term.
What is Substack for people who don't know?
Yeah, so Substack is a writing platform, and I would say some of my favorite creators are on Substack. So you can find content on there about anything. There's stuff for product managers, there's stuff for writers, there's stuff for careers. Like it's incredible. There's so much incredible writing talent on there. And also a lot of people actually utilize Substack to create and build newsletters as well.
And you can get paid on it as well. So that's the big benefit of having a platform where you can actually pay people who you love to follow and give them a kickback for the awesome content they're creating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I love, is it Bree Lee, one of the authors? Have you seen her Substack?
No.
She writes really good stuff around like the writing industry and like the future of that, which is really interesting to see.
Yeah. It's like the new Tumblr.
Yeah.
But with more words.
Or Medium kind of, but like being able to get paid.
Yeah.
It's funny how these platforms keep evolving.
Absolutely.
But it's a great way to access other people that you wouldn't have otherwise, right?
Totally.
Like, how often do you go to someone's blog, right? Like here you can access all that.
Yeah. And I think we're in a culture that is really, really curious and really wanting to learn. I think we're slowly moving away from the traditional career, which is like the 9 to 5 working for an organization. And I think more people are opting in for what I call the gig economy, right? And so there's just a lot of content on there that allows you to figure out how do you do that for yourself? How do you replicate maybe a blueprint that someone else already has? So platforms like that are just fantastic. Yeah.
Is it a specific Substack coach? Did you Google like, how do I find a Substack coach?
No, I actually found her through on my homepage, and I decided to follow her, and her content was really great. And then when I started exploring a little bit around her success stories, I found that she's helped people scale and grow their subscriber base, but also do it in a way that they're getting paid for their writing, which is what I would love to do.
Yeah, amazing.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
So it just, for me, it was a no-brainer really to make that commitment up front and get somebody who can just take all the thinking out of the process for me. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I think we're going to get into like the gig economy, I'm sure, in a little bit. But Anna, do you have a money win or loss for us?
Yeah, I had to take my kid to go get an ultrasound, and it was free because I finally found a place where I can get bulk billing for kids and different things like that. Oh my gosh, it's just been such an expensive year with kids stuff and health and all of those things. And some areas just you can't find bulk billing. Like it has virtually been impossible. And I had to go like one evening because my kid split his head open. Anyways, it opened up a whole new clinic that did bulk billing for under 16. So
amazing.
That's now opened a new financial win, but not a health win on the other side. Yeah. But nonetheless, it's one of the things I was thinking about was just how expensive it is for like any kind of medical stuff. So if you can get it cheaper, but
especially on this side of Australia, I used to always go to bulk bill GP appointments in Perth. Like they were everywhere. They were really easy to access, even as like not a child and not a concessional person. But then in Canberra, I couldn't find one, and I haven't found one in Melbourne yet either.
Yeah, it's not really difficult now.
Yeah.
It used to be the case that there was a lot of bulk billing clinics. There just isn't anymore. Like my doctor's private, but I'm willing to pay because she's great and she's super thorough. But well,
that was the other thing. It was
expensive.
Like 10 minutes. That's it. Like you know,
10 minutes is $100.
Yeah. So anyways, what about you, Tash? What's your win or loss?
Life win. I made it into the Forbes 30 under 30 list.
Yeah.
That's so very exciting. So not a money win exactly yet, but a few cool things are coming from that, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, I'm so excited.
That is a huge win.
Possibly like money loss, I don't know, to even get into the list a little bit. You don't have to pay to get on the list, but they invited me to a photo shoot really last minute, and they gave me a colourful dress code. So I had to go out and buy some new colourful clothes and book last minute flights in a hotel, which is fine. But interesting, the kind of like financial stuff that goes into even being able to get these opportunities.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, because you'd have to, like if you were working, you'd have to take time off. You have to move clients around. You have to buy a whole new wardrobe. Yeah,
I got the email on like Monday morning and the shoot was Wednesday, and it was all day Wednesday.
Oh my.
Yeah, and it's great that I could go. But I think it is, there's like a level of privilege to even be able to be involved in something like that.
Yeah. It's good to shine some light on that because people don't realize that, right? Like they're just, if
you don't have $1,000 spare to just like go to this last minute photo shoot. Yep. And you didn't have to go, but like you get a lot more PR if you're like in the photos.
You have to go.
Yeah.
Actually, you just have to go.
It's such a great opportunity. It's not one you want to give up or miss out on.
Yeah. And it was fun to meet everyone, and it was a big social thing. But it's interesting when you look behind all this stuff and you're like, interesting, very privileged world.
Yeah.
But excited to be on the list anyway.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. Yeah. I'm excited to see what opportunities are going to come from it too.
Yeah. We have a dinner next week, which will be fun with all the finalists. That'll be interesting. And I've already been asked to speak on a panel from the back of that as well. So it'll be interesting to see what else comes from it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, fun.
Let's take it to Nabila.
Okay. Hit me with the questions.
Yeah. So people might not know, but I have a history with you. We used to work together. We
actually had a history with you. What an intro. We have a history.
We have history. Our desks used to be next to each other. We used to go for coffee breaks.
Yes. What was Anna like at work?
She honestly, in a way, Anna was, I would say, like a mentor to me. Oh. I went to her, I think it was, I don't know if it was like in the first year or so, but one of the things I was really passionate about was employer branding. And that was a space that Anna was owning. And I said to her, hey, I'm like really interested in this. Is there a way that I can help you? And she just took me under her wings and taught me everything that I needed to know about that space, and just gave me a lot of room to experiment and try and to get into something new. And together we were able to do some really cool stuff with growing the Redbubble LinkedIn page. And so I'd definitely say that she was a mentor and an advocate, which is really, really hard to come by, I think, in the workplace. So I feel very, very grateful for that relationship.
That's so beautiful. I didn't expect that answer. Thank you. Likewise, I think like working with Nabila has been so amazing. She has a background in recruiting now. She started her own business and you'd always have these great conversations with potential candidates coming in, and you would look at so many resumes, so many cover letters. I know so many people are looking for jobs at the moment. You have some of the best tips and understanding of what people are looking for.
Sure.
So if I'm applying for a job or anyone, what are some of the things that a potential candidate should consider?
Okay. My number one piece of advice, and this is actually not anything to do with resumes or cover letters, right? One thing I do with all my clients is I strip it right back. So the first thing is get really clear on what it is you want to do. So when I say that, what I'm talking about is a lot of people don't know what they want. So what they're doing is they're applying to every single job, every single opportunity. They're kind of just throwing something at a wall and hoping that it will stick. And what ends up happening is people get really frustrated and overwhelmed and exhausted by the whole job search process, and they want to give up. That's not really a great place to be in. It doesn't feel good, right? So the first thing that I'll say to everyone is, okay, well, talk me through, what does your dream or your ideal role look like? What kind of things would you be doing on the day-to-day? What's your manager like? What kind of culture are you in? Tell me a little bit about what kind of opportunities and what kind of projects you'd like to work on. And so once you get really clear on that, you can then say, oh, okay, well, these organizations actually align best with that kind of role. These are the kind of roles that I'd be best suited in. And so then when you're going to apply for a job, for example, you're not applying to 100 jobs anymore. You're maybe applying to 20 or 30, right? And then when you're applying to less, you can be more strategic because you can actually tailor your experience. So that's your resume, your cover letter, to that specific role and that specific organization. And the more you tailor something to the thing that you're trying to do, the better the outcome that I find, right? Especially now, because what you're finding, and everyone can do this, if you're on LinkedIn, you can actually see how many people have applied to the roles, right? So most roles these days have over 100 applicants.
Yeah, a lot.
Super competitive, right? So just sending something that's super generic out there is not going to work anymore. So that's the first thing that I get everyone to do, is get really clear on that.
Niche down, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What if you're not sure yet about all those things and you just kind of want to start trying some roles to see what's best for you? How does someone try and navigate that?
I think it really depends on how much time and energy have you got to do that, right? What is your situation, right? So let's say that you're not in a hurry to get your next role and you've got some time, then what you can do is you could probably take on like a casual role, or you can take on maybe like a part-time role. I've had clients who have done that actually. Or you can start like tinkering on it as a side project and see if you've got interest in it and if you like it. I've also done that myself. So I think that's one way to do it. But if you're somebody who's like, oh, I've got to find a role like straight away, then you really have to get clear on, well, how much time and energy do I have to experiment, right? And if you don't have a whole heap of time, then what I would say is get out a pen and paper and sit down and write. There's a Japanese approach to this, and I really don't want to mess up saying it. Is it ikigai? Is that how you
yeah, I believe that you pronounce it like that.
I'm so scared that I've pronounced that wrong and I've offended so many people. I apologize. But basically what it is, it's you figure out what your natural skills are, what you love doing, like what you're passionate about. Then you figure out, what does the world like need more of? And then you see where all of those things intersect. And that gives you a really good idea of things that you could potentially pursue. So that will again help you dwindle your options down and still get a little bit more clearer and more strategic, right? I don't know. I just found any time where I've tried, and this is my personal experience, any time where I've tried to go and do something without clearly having thought it through, it's always ended up being a hot mess. So
Yeah, I feel like it always points you in the right direction. You're like, oh no, maybe not this anymore. Maybe I'll do something else instead.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's a gut feeling too. There's been times where I've applied for jobs and I'm like, in theory, I think I would love to do X, Y, Z, but like deep down, I'm like, oh, the thought of that job is just like does not align.
I can convince myself that anything's a good idea if I like feel slightly excited about it for 2 seconds. And I'm like, I'll redesign my whole life to do this new thing. And then I'll do it and be like, oh, never mind. Not for me.
It's really important to kind of be clear on what exactly you're doing.
But then you can also make the list of being like, okay, I know I don't like that now. Now let's reflect on that.
Yeah, totally.
Because I think people get so scared of like, I don't know what I want to do. And when I need to find out what I want to do, I'm just going to shut down and not do it. Like people do it with investing as well. It's like, why do you want to invest? And it's like, oh, I don't really know yet. So I'm not going to bother doing it at all.
Yes. I think it's a really common thing that I see happening in careers where people get stuck and they're like, and they just feel stuck for a very long time. And I'll be honest, I felt that way for a very long time. So I knew that I wanted to do something different, probably like 2 years before I finished up at Block.
Wow.
I just didn't know what to do.
What were you thinking?
Like
you were just like, I want to leave my job. I know there's something else out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing I struggled with is I really struggled with not feeling like I was able to be creative in my role anymore. And I wanted to do something that was creative. And so I just did nothing. I was like, okay, well, I'll just let this sort of sort itself out.
You're writing on the side. You have to like.
I was doing poetry, but I wasn't like fully committing to anything, you know? And so I was in that loop for a really long time. And what I realized now being where I am is that momentum is key. I don't need to do a big thing. If I just do like teeny tiny little things and I feel like I'm making progress, that's good enough, right? And so what I would encourage people who are feeling stuck in their careers is don't worry about like the bigger picture or the grand picture or doing some big, huge thing. Just think about what are the micro things that you can do that can get you to make progress.
Just like 1% better, you know, like just write 1 sentence and 1 sentence and soon enough you'll have a book, you'll have a writing Substack, right?
Absolutely.
Like it just that small bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So if people are stuck in their job and they're sitting down and they're narrowing down of what they do, how do they get noticed if they're competing with 100 other applicants?
Are we talking more about like that initial job search stage?
Because I think a lot of people are looking for jobs right now. It's a bit, people are worried about AI or what's happening with the economy or there's been a bunch of redundancies. How do you cut through all that?
Okay.
Yeah. How do you be number one when there's 100 applicants?
All right, cool. I love this question. I have lots of different answers. So I think for everyone listening, let me break it down bit by bit. Yeah. So in the job search process, the first thing that you've got to do is you've got to apply and you've got to land the interview, right? So what does that mean? That means that your resume really has to tell a compelling story of why you're the right person for the role. So number one, write a really, really good professional summary and career highlight section. That should be right at the top of your CV. And it should be written so well that the moment I read that, I go, oh, yeah, I want to talk to Anna. Like, I've got to talk to her. She's great.
Because people only look for a couple seconds sometimes, right?
Yeah. So when I was a recruiter, the stat was that recruiters spent 30 seconds glancing at a CV initially.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to know what it is?
Oh my God, it's less.
Yeah. It's 6 to 8 seconds.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's not a lot. It's not a lot of time for you to make a good impression.
Yeah, no. And apparently your eyes, as they look on the page, are usually like the F, right? So you kind of like look up and down and across the top. So you have to, like to your point, having that summary or something that's eye-catching at the top is really important.
Yeah. So the way that I encourage my clients to approach CVs is everything should go across diagonally, right? And then I should be able to look down and it should be everything should be in chronological order, right? So professional summary and career highlights right at the top, bang, I've seen it. I've read it. It's great. Then we move into the most pivotal part, which is your key achievements. What do most people do?
They just list what they've done instead of their achievements. Is that right?
It's like, this is my responsibility.
I'm responsible for this system. Great. What did you do?
Yeah. So that's not a key achievement. That's telling me what you're responsible for, which I already know because I wrote the job ad, right? Yeah. So give me what you did, how you did it, and what the outcome was. So that's the formula, right? To writing a really strong key summary. It's what was the challenge or the problem that you had to solve? Then how did you do that? Who did you collaborate with? Be really specific. I think this is the other issue with AI at the moment, because people are using AI to write their resumes, but they're so generic. Like it doesn't tell me any specific details about your work situation.
Can you give us an example of this? Like what someone would actually write?
Like if I was to write it myself and not AI?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Like what a perfect one would be if you've read that and you're like, yep, cool. It tells me all I need to know
Absolutely.
and I can move on.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just use my example as a recruiter. So one of my key achievements was that we built out a return to work program, which enabled us to hire 3 people from diverse backgrounds, and then we converted them into full-time staff. That's
Amazing.
a huge win, right? Mm-hmm. It was the first ever time we had a program like that in entire block, and we piloted it here in Australia, and it was a huge success. So that was one of my key achievements. So the way that I would write that is I designed and built a return to work program, partnering with the engineering team, the new grads team, finance, whoever I partnered with, I'd talk about them. And this led to or resulted in the hiring of 3 people from diverse backgrounds who then went on to become permanent employees in the organization.
Perfect.
Right? Like that's clear.
You have initiative, you can collaborate.
Specific. Yeah, absolutely.
And you have an understanding of like the kind of work that you've actually done.
Totally. Yeah. It says, oh, Nabila did this at this organization.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It says AI didn't write it. Yeah. So from a resume perspective, they're the main things. They're the 2 main things. Oh, sorry. There's one more thing with resumes. Please, format your resume well, right?
Go use Canva. Go use something. Make it look nice.
Make it look nice. You don't even need to use Canva. You could just use Google Docs or you could use Word, but just make sure that the fonts are consistent. The sizing is good. Make sure that you check for grammar. You check for spelling.
Feels like such basic things.
It's totally basic, but a lot of people don't do that. And then what ends up happening, right, especially when you're in a competitive market, recruiters and hiring managers look at it and go, this person doesn't have attention to detail. And therefore, if they don't have attention to detail in their resume, how can I trust that they're going to have that in their job? Mm-hmm. Right? So every single thing that you do, you want to be putting your best foot forward. So if, I know that some people are not strong in English or as proficient in English, that's okay. Where AI is really great, you can actually use AI as a proofreader, or alternatively, once you've got that final version of your CV, send it to someone who does in your network. Maybe a family member, maybe a friend. Get them to look over it and give you the go ahead before you start sending it out.
Do you need to write a cover letter?
Okay.
I hate cover letters, I'm going to be honest.
Same.
Oh, I didn't mind cover letters.
Really?
Because you can talk more about yourself.
But do people read them?
Resumes are so efficient. But cover letters are like, I'm great and I can tell you how great I am in more words.
But in 6 seconds, will you read over a cover letter?
I've always been quite good at getting jobs previously, so maybe, I don't know.
I didn't have a cover letter.
I've never worked in corporate though, so I don't know. Maybe it's different.
Yeah, corporate sometimes, I know government usually requires cover letters. Okay, controversial opinion. If they don't ask for a cover letter, don't write one.
Okay, interesting.
Right? The reason is because most people don't write really good cover letters. I talk about this with all my recruiting friends all of the time. A lot of people just, again, it's a templated cover letter. It's not specific to the role. It doesn't really add any information that's missing from the resume. We're not getting anything new out of reading it. But if you want to write a really good cover letter, the one thing you need to be able to do in a cover letter is answer the question, why? Ultimately, the question, why you above everyone else?
Yeah, that's good.
Right. So I recently did one with one of my clients who was applying for a government role. And the way we started the cover letter off was actually with a personal story. So it talked about why she wanted to get into education and why she also wanted to get into veterinary nursing. And it was this beautiful personal story. And the moment you read it, you're like, oh yeah, I've got to keep reading this. And then we went in and we did number by number what she had done that aligns to the specific things this role is looking for. and highlighted her experience in accordance to that. It was really well done. But it took a lot of time. I think we spent an hour on a call where we got everything. Then she went away, wrote everything and sent it to me for the final edit. So it was a lot of effort to write a cover letter like that. It's the same thing with resumes. It takes time. So you might actually have to do a few iterations before you get it perfect. But I promise the outcome is so worthwhile.
Yeah, especially if it's your dream job and you found it.
Absolutely.
I've been writing cover letters for rentals and that's worked out quite well as well because people like to know who you are. And I know jobs are different, but you're still like, why am I perfect for this job or for this rental?
Totally.
And like, why can you trust me? And it seems to work quite well.
Yeah, because it's like you're making a pitch, right? Yeah.
And it's essentially your first way that you're going to get in. Unless you know someone and who can like help you with getting an interview, you have to land the cover letter and the resume. You have to.
How important is networking? I know a lot of people really hate it.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying to Anna before actually in an earlier conversation that there's a reason why the saying is your network is your net worth. Mm-hmm. Like when I think about my career, especially at my time in Block, I was able to get 2 promotions and grow my career fairly quickly over 5 years. I didn't do that in isolation, right? Like that happened because I had the right relationships in place to be able to do that. And how do you build those relationships? So number one, I think there's a huge part of it is trust. Do you do the thing that you say you're going to do, right? Like that's the key to a good relationship, having that element of trust. The other one is adding value. Let me take that off your hands. Let me help you with that. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, I did this thing. This is what I learned. I think this might actually help you. So whenever we had new starters join our team, I actually had this onboarding doc that I'd built out at Block. I was the first hire here in Australia. And my manager was in New York. So everything that I learned, I literally had to document it because I didn't have anyone else here in my time zone that could help me. And so whenever anyone new joined our team, I'd say, hey, I've actually built this thing out. I think it'd be really helpful for you. Let's get on a call. Let me talk you through it. And then you can use it as your onboarding tool. And then you can add to it if you want. And so finding ways to add value is also super important. And then I think the other part is like, there's something about breaking bread. A lot of the great connections happen over breaking bread, whether it's like going out for a coffee or going out for a walk or getting a cookie, like whatever it is.
Getting a cookie.
Yeah,
that's what we did.
That's what we did today. I just like having those conversations, and then like those conversations can bring about pots of gold, right? And then I think the other part is finding the right mentors. And then last but not least, finding a sponsor. So who in the organization, when you're not there, can say, hey, actually, you should go talk to Nabila about this or Jess about this or Anna about
this. It's like an advocate for you, right? When you're not there.
When you're not there.
Yeah. Because a mentor is someone who you turn to when you need support and they'll be there to support you. But having an advocate when someone's like, you know what? I vouch for so-and-so. You know what? You should talk to Nabila or you should talk to Tash. That's like a huge part of it.
Yeah. Who can get you in the rooms that you want to be in, but you don't know how to get in there?
Yeah, I think like we've talked about networking so many times, how important it is. I think for jobs, especially if you're looking for jobs in this job market, knowing people, reaching out, saying, hey, I'm looking for something and being front of mind.
Yes. Yeah, and adding value, because I get a lot of random messages and emails these days. Yeah, and it's the ones where people are just asking for stuff outright that I'm like, oh, I don't like want to respond to that. Yes. But if people have been really supportive first and then ask for something, I'm more likely to actually respond to them. Mm-hmm. And it's, I think people like often miss that where they're like, oh, I'll just send all these DMs and hope for the best. Yeah. But when you can see they're just copy and paste and they've sent them to everyone, you're not as inclined to respond.
I've got a post going up tomorrow on my LinkedIn, which is about how do you ask somebody to be your mentor? It's like a step-by-step of how to do that. I recently had a client and I just, my heart broke for them. Got on a call with a potential mentor, but as soon as they got on the call, he asked for them to be his mentor straight off the bat.
Oh, hi, will you be my mentor?
Yeah. It got super awkward. And, it's totally okay because the only way that you learn is by making mistakes sometimes. And so now we know that approach doesn't work and we're not going to do that anymore, right? But there is an art to how you go about developing that relationship. And I absolutely agree with you. I think adding value is huge. Hey, I came across this article that I think you'd really, really like that totally fits in with your brand. I just want to share it with you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. If they make content being like, hey, I listened to this podcast episode and I loved all of this about it, to show that you've actually like gone and paid attention to what we've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or people who bought our book and shared that to their stories. I was like, oh, cool. They're actually like promoting our stuff. Like they value what we're doing here. That was good as well.
Totally.
So buy their book if they've got a book.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about networking. We've talked about the resume. When you get into the job interview, I know some people are so stressed about that. I feel like I often nail the job interview. It's just like getting through the door is the hard part. But for other people, I know it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Where what is the one thing that people need to do going into a job interview?
Preparation
Yes.
is key.
Yeah.
Like that's, if I had to summarize it, it's that. So, again, I'll use an example to illustrate my point. So when I was going for the role at Block, I wasn't sure if I had a high chance of getting it because number one, I felt a little bit underqualified. Number two, they were hiring this role as a contractor. They never had a recruiter here in Australia before. So this was a really big deal for them. And when I read the job description, I thought to myself, oh my God, they like want someone way more senior than me. I think at that time, I only really had like 2 years of proper in-house recruiting experience, right? So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm kind of going in at a little bit of a disadvantage. So that means that when I go into this interview, I absolutely have to nail it. And so, and I've actually got the document. I wrote out a 20-something page document with every single interview topic they were going to cover. So they had 6 interview topics that they had given me, and each one had a 30-minute interview attached to them.
Did they have questions that they sent you ahead of time? No, you just like went and found different questions to just prepare as much as possible. Yeah.
So back then there was no like AI, there was no ChatGPT. It was just me and Google. So I was like, Google, give me some questions on adaptability, right? And so I took as many of those questions that seemed relevant to me and what I would be talking about, I put them in a Google Doc and then I dot pointed out my responses and I had examples in there. Then I sat and I just literally would sit in front of a mirror or in front of my friends and I'd get them to ask me those questions and I'd just like keep repeating. I think I spent like 20 hours of prep it was a 3-hour interview.
Yeah.
A 3-hour interview seems huge. Are they common?
In tech, you can have a lot of interviews. Yeah. Like some engineers would go like how many 5 rounds of interviews as well. Like it can be
crazy.
Really intense.
Yeah. So like in tech, you typically will have like the recruiter screen, which is you talk to someone like me. That's a little bit more of a casual conversation. If that goes well, then depending on like the role, you may have a technical interview where you need to do a task, or you may have like an interview with a hiring manager. Then you move into the full day interview. So for engineers, for example, or even product managers or product designers, that's close to like a 5-hour interview of back-to-back interviews.
Crazy.
Yeah. It sounds like it's a lot.
Tasha's mind is like blown. Like, what's tech? Yeah. I remember like, this is so funny that you're saying this because I remember wanting to get into product.
Right.
And I think at that time we were like sitting next to each other and I went in for an interview at a smaller tech company as well for a product role. It was like a junior product role. And I was doing like things on the side to try to get into product, like similarly to what you said, like, how can I add value? I know this, like, give me like some projects, but I wasn't a product manager yet. And I remember going to that interview, talking to some PMs ahead of time, being like, what are the type of questions that they ask? Like I wrote everything down. I prepared over and over and over again. And I went to that interview and like, needless to say, I didn't have the experience, right? Like I was super junior and they were hiring for a junior role. So they knew that, but they were like, we love your enthusiasm. We love like how much you've thought about this. We like, you know, maybe your answers weren't like right on target because you haven't done the work. Like you haven't done the work, so you don't actually know all of that, but you're thinking in the right headspace. But the prep that I did on that like was forever, you know, sitting down with anyone I knew to kind of get those questions and answers. And you realize that in a lot of times in recruiting, when people are not recruiting, in the interview process, they really just want to know how you think. Like that was the thing with product management. How do you get from A to B? If you want to solve this problem, what's your thinking process to get here? And that takes a lot of you having to problem solve the answer, thinking about how you're going to answer it, answering it in the best communicative way. Like it's a lot. It's a lot of work in those tech roles for anyone who's interested.
How do you like overcome feeling really defeated if you don't get a few jobs like that in a row? Because that would be really hard if you're dedicating 20 hours or even just like the day of interviews. Like that's crazy. Spending 5 hours interviewing, you don't get it. And then you have to do that again and again. How do people keep going?
It's really tough. The people that I've seen be successful when they've come up against odds like that are the people who've given themselves time to feel whatever they're feeling. And I say that to everyone that I work with. Give yourself time to feel whatever you're feeling, right? And then we regroup. Okay, so what did you learn from that experience? What do you think went well in that interview? What do you think didn't go well in that interview? And then the moment you ask that question, you get a lot of really great insight. Oh, actually, I think I didn't answer this question correctly, or I didn't do this thing correctly. And then you can make sure the next time you've gone ahead and incorporated that learning into your answers, right? The other thing is, and this sounds really corny, but I always believe that rejection is redirection. Like if you didn't get the role, it doesn't mean that you won't get it in 6 months or in a year. It just means that's not where you're meant to be right at this moment, right? But what I found with, like I recently had a client who got a job offer after going through a few different types of interviews at different organizations, and finally we got the one. And it just, those roles weren't meant to be. So you just got to goes back to the momentum, right? You just got to keep going. I think one other thing that I want to say about interviewing is if a company has organized time to meet with you, to interview you, I promise you the intention is that they want to hire you, right? The interviews are not there to make you lose. Like that's not why they have the interviews, right? Ultimately, what they're trying to understand is how successful will you be at in the role and in the organization and in the team. That's what they're really trying to understand. So if they're taking the time to give you a half-day interview, that's a lot of time and resources, right?
They're hoping you're the one.
Yeah.
They don't want to go and do another interview. They're like, yes, you looked, so good on paper. You sounded good on the phone.
Yes.
We want you. Please show us that you're the one.
Yeah, that you're the one, right? Like for a tech interview, you have 2 interviewers in each interview. That's a lot of engineering time you're cutting into.
That's a lot of money. The budget for hiring is huge. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you've got the interview, it means that you're that much closer to getting the job. All you have to do is practice, prepare, and show up. And when you show up, put in effort in terms of how you show up. Even if it's a virtual interview, put a brush through your hair, make sure you're dressed well, make sure that you're presenting well, that there's no background noise, that, all of those things, all of it matters.
I kind of laugh because like working in the tech industry, there's just so many people that rock up in shorts and t-shirts, and it's like part of the like laid back culture. But
there's still an etiquette,
it's like the vibe when you get the job, but not when you're trying to get the job. You've got to transition in.
Exactly.
And always good to remember it's just practice as well.
Totally.
When I was younger, I went to so many job interviews for all these casual jobs that I didn't even really want, but I was like, let's go see what it's like and if I like them. And I feel like that was so good for getting confident and not feeling nervous in them, and such a powerful tool later on. But if you haven't had a job interview in years because you've been at your job for like 5-6 years, that'd be really stressful to be like, wow, I need to go and do this again.
Yes. It's also, I also see interviews as a great tool of validation of where you are in the market. So you may not necessarily want to move jobs, but if you're looking to validate maybe what your salary should be in the market, right? Go and interview. And that can also give you a leg up in negotiations as well.
Yeah,
it can be an ego
It's
boost.
a bit cheeky.
Yeah.
It's a bit cheeky.
But I think it's great. Like every time that I felt kind of down about my career trajectory, I've been really fortunate, especially the last couple companies I've been in, just like constant growth, right? And for me to stay in a company is like, I want to feel inspired. I want to feel like I'm learning. I want to feel passionate about it. And if those things aren't working for me, then I'm like, let's go look around. What's
Maybe
next?
you should be like that. You should be like, okay, cool, I want something better.
For sure.
And if you're not going to offer it to me.
And going elsewhere, talking to other companies, to your point, you see where you kind of land in the market, but it's also a nice ego boost to just go somewhere else and
be like, a job and you're like, oh, I win.
Yeah, cool. It's a good negotiating tactic.
It is. Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people also want to know.
Yes.
How do you negotiate a better wage? How do you get in if you're doing with the interview?
Yeah. So recently one of my clients got a role in a tech company, and with tech roles, typically you have bands, right? So if you're going in at, say, for example, level 5 will have a band that may range from 130 to 150. That is all you'll be able to kind of operate within, right? And they gave her the lower end of the band. And I thought to myself, there's room to move here, right? And I said to her, okay, well, what figure would seem really fair to you, that you would go into the role, you'd be super excited, that you'd give you 110%. And we agreed that figure was 140. It was right in the middle, right? So you're not asking for the higher end. It gives her some room to grow over the next couple of years. It's also just, they don't feel like you're kind of taking it too far by going right at the end. So we agreed on that number. And then we drafted a really thoughtful email, which was, thank you so much for letting me know that I've got the offer. I'm so excited to join. There is one thing that I'd love to discuss and see if there's movement on, which is salary. I've done some market research, and recruiters or software engineers typically place at this figure. Also, given my experience and all the work that I've previously done and all the impact I've made, this is where I also evaluate myself, because this is what I'm going to bring to your organization. Is there any potential that you can meet me here? Because if you could, I'd come in really excited, really enthusiastic, and then end with, let me know if you've got some time to jump on a call to talk it through, or just let me know an email, right?
I always feel so nervous when I send those emails off, but I'm like, I know my worth. I know Tasha's really good at it.
I've had more practice.
You've had more practice. Yeah, I know. But I know when I'm like, send it off, I'm like,
it's so funny. Now I'm on the other side, right? Having my own practice. And so when I'm doing my strategy calls with clients, and then we get to the section where we're talking about money and what it's going to cost, there was a part of me in the early days that was really hesitant to put that number out, right? And I was like, oh, are people going to think it's like too expensive? And then I had to go back and think about, okay, well, what are the results I'm getting people?
Yeah.
Right?
And how much time are you saving them?
Yeah, right. Like, and what is the value of what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And so if every client of mine is getting $10,000 to $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 more in their salary, or if I'm cutting their job search time down by 3, 4, 5 months.
And how many hours per interview?
Yeah. So then to me, that benefit outweighs
for sure
the investment.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So it can feel really awkward, but if you don't ask, you don't get. And I'm a huge advocate of people asking the question, because the worst case scenario is, sorry, can't do it. Okay, cool. Well,
and then and then you don't feel resentful. I think so many people feel so resentful for being underpaid, but then they won't ask for it.
Totally. Or they don't regret it. Then you don't have regret. So
but then you also know that like the company knows that you want more and you can work towards making more. So maybe they'll be like, no, sorry, not now, but maybe in 6 months we can work towards that.
Yes. One of my friends recently was in she was going through a process with an organization, and they weren't able to negotiate on salary, right? So they were like, no, sorry, this is a number that we're locked in at. So then the question and the conversation was, okay, well, when can I renegotiate? Oh, okay. Well, in 6 months' time. Okay, cool. So then tell me, in 6 months' time, what do I need to do to get there?
And put it in my contract.
Yeah.
And this is another piece of advice I will say to job seekers. If that is the case, that they say, hey, in 6 months, we will revisit, get in writing. Everything has to be in writing. Get in writing really clearly what you need to do so that in 6 months you will get that promotion and that 20K rise or that 10K, whatever it is. but get it in writing and get a really clear plan of what you have to do, because otherwise you will be fumbling in the dark. You'll get to 6 months and you're not going to get that pay rise.
Yeah. And then you'll be
Nobody's working for free.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And it's so awkward to like bring it up if it hasn't already been
remember
discussed.
this?
Like, hey, remember that
6 months
conversation?
ago?
Here's my screenshot of your last email.
Yeah. I wrote it down in my scribble notes.
Totally. Yeah.
It sounds like you have so much amazing advice and you are so helpful to so many people. If anyone wants to come and find you and get your help, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at www.avarcoaching.com.
Can you spell that?
AVAR coaching.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am so responsive on there, or Instagram as well. Like, I'm trying to do all the social media channels. Come and find me. Yeah, I'd love to talk. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, this sounds like such a helpful service and tool. And yeah, so many people should go and see you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Nabila.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please rate us 5 stars, write a review, or share with a friend. If you're new to investing, make sure to listen to our first 10 episodes. Follow us at Get Rich Slow Club or Tash at Tash Invest, or me at Ana Cristina.
This show was brought to you by Natasha Etchman, who is an authorized representative 1299881 of Guideway Financial Services, AFSL 420367, and Perla, who is an authorized representative 1281540 of Sanlam Private Wealth, AFSL 337927. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you check out our financial services guides and read the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any investments you're considering. See our show notes for more info.